you all just heard, I think we are going to record today's session. As usual, we have just some incredible content and we want to make it available to as many people as possible around the world who are in time zones literally everywhere, you name it, and can't always join for these second Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern times that we've been hosting every month. And so for them, hi to all of you who are watching this recorded. We're excited to be able to share this content with all of you, wherever you might be. Some quick logistics. This is a meeting, not a webinar, so you all can turn on your videos. In fact, I encourage you to do so. Would love to see your beautiful faces, pajamas or professionally dressed or black tie, or maybe you've got a Met Gala inspired ensemble. I don't know. But we want to see it. So please definitely turn on your cameras. This is a wonderful time to be able to look each other in the eye, to connect, to see faces. Hi, Cajun. Seeing some friends here. So definitely do that if you feel comfortable, safe space for that. You all will be muted, but as there's Q&A, if you want to use the controls at the bottom of your screen where you see reactions, you can raise your hand. I can invite you to unmute yourself if you want to ask a question directly. You can also use the chat function in the bottom of your screen to type any questions that you might have. And Robin, Jaffin, or myself will queue those up for our wonderful host, Day Wilson. She, as many of you know, because you're here and she is such a draw for all of you, is a font of knowledge, as a patient herself, an expert in low FODMAP. I want to call you a researcher, Day. I mean, you really are, in every sense of the word, as far as I'm concerned, to vet tools, programs, research itself to ensure its efficacy and integrity, to make sure that the information that's being shared with curious individuals or other patients and caregivers is high quality, is efficacious, is evidence-based. And that's what today's topic is going to be all about. Day and Robin are pioneers, entrepreneurs, and just frankly wonderful humans to work with. They run the site at fodmapeveryday.com. If you haven't checked it out, we'll have links for you today. And we'll also be following up with you via the FODMAP Everyday newsletter to ensure that the knowledge that Day is about to drop will come to your inboxes. Again, for those of you who just joined, this will be recorded as well. If you want to re-watch or send the recording to friends, you can do that. And again, use the chat function. I see somebody already did. No problem, Carol. Come and go as you please. We'll bid you adieu at 2:55. No problem at all. But yeah, definitely use that chat function or raise your hands. And with that, Day, I'll turn it over to you to kick things off.
Thank you. Thank you, Jamie. Well, hello, everybody. Thank you for joining. And just to recap, I do follow the diet myself. I had suffered with IBS for 25 years when I discovered the diet in 2015, and it made a significant difference in my life. I had been a recipe developer and had worked in the food industry, well, at this point for 30 years. And I actually thought I was going to have to give up my career. But the diet completely saved my life, my professional life as well, because then I just turned to working with the low FODMAP diet and in this space and developing low FODMAP recipes and doing FODMAP education. And so Robin and I, as Jamie mentioned, have FODMAP every day. We have over 1,000 recipes at this point on the site. We have over 300 articles. Most are written by our Monash trained RDs. And we run several Facebook groups that have tens of thousands of people in them. And every single day, I see people asking questions that I actually know can be easily answered if they had the right tools. I see people confused about things and asking for clarification. And so when we were trying to come up with a topic for today, it just seemed really, trying not to make things shaky. I wanted to do something that was really basic, but that I knew was going to be really helpful to people. So the first thing I'd love to do, if all of you can jump into the chat box, I would love to hear from you. when you first discovered the low FODMAP diet, what were the most helpful tools for you? I recently asked this question in one of our private Facebook groups, and there were actually some interesting answers. So I would love to see what you guys have to say. You know, was it your doctor? Were you already connected with a dietitian? Was it a particular website? Was it something you found online? I mean, give me one. What tool was really helpful for you? So I want to see what you guys say. Okay, let's see. People want to find out how to find a dietitian. This person said, dietitian Ann Monash. Oh, it's Catan. Hi, nice to see you. So while you guys are filling that out, I'm just going to start at the beginning, which is that we are going to assume that everyone here has had a medical diagnosis for IBS, because we believe, Monash and our team of RDs believe, that if you are embarking upon the low FODMAP diet, before we get into the resources, to manage your IBS, that we do want to know that you have a medical diagnosis of IBS. And that is because there are a lot of things that can mimic IBS, from diverticulitis to endometriosis to more serious GI conditions like IBD, ulcerative colitis, and many more. And so we want to know that you have connected with your medical team and have gotten a medical diagnosis. So if you have, chances are your doctor, or whether it was a GI or a general practitioner, might have said to you, you should try this low FODMAP diet. And we also bet that a lot of you possibly were sent out of the office either with nothing except those words, or possibly a sheet of paper. And the sheet of paper might have had a column that said, don't eat these foods, these are high FODMAP, and another column that said, these are foods are okay, and these are low FODMAP, and you were sent on your way. People, raise your hands. I want to see visually. Was this the case for any of you? Did you get one of those lists, or were you maybe just sent off willy-nilly and told to do what you needed to do? Yep, we see some hands going up. So, you know, this is typical. And so the problem with this is that these lists that a lot of these doctors, this is often the first tangible thing that people get about the low FODMAP diet. And while it might seem like guidance, there are some caveats that we want to point out. First of all, any printed list can be out of date quite easily. That's the first thing to understand. And the other thing is that all of these lists, even if they were updated the day that they were handed to you, are very, very high level, high perspective statements about the diet. What I mean by that is that on that high column, the do not eat high FODMAP food portion of that piece of paper, you might see things like avocados, bananas, almonds, blueberries. And what this does, this is at the very beginning of you trying to learn about the diet. You put in your head, I can't eat bananas, I can't eat avocados. And that starts getting integrated into your brain. And then you go out onto the internet, you go into a Facebook group, you research recipes, you pick up a tangible cookbook, and you see recipes that include avocados or bananas. And now the confusion begins. And I think that this is huge, because at the very beginning, the GIs and the general practitioners are most often, I mean, I actually have never heard anyone tell me otherwise, they're not explaining to their patients that the diet is completely portion related, serving size related. Now, I'll get back to that in a second, but I just want to say something else about the GIs and the general practitioners. There's kind of a good reason for this. The GIs and the general practitioners are not registered dietitians, and they are not trained in the low FODMAP diet. So it isn't really part of their training to impart that information to you, and that's why it doesn't get to you. And that's also why Monash University researchers, they developed the diet, and Epicure works with Monash, we work with Monash, our team of RDs, we all tell people you should be undertaking this diet along with a registered dietitian. And that is for a couple of reasons. First of all, they are your best resource. This is what registered dietitians do. This is what they're meant to do. And if they're trained, if they're FODMAP trained, you're going to be in the best hands possible. So really, the number one resource is getting connected with a FODMAP trained dietitian. Now, I have to tell you, when I was diagnosed in 2015, no, excuse me, I was diagnosed with IBS in 1990. When I discovered the diet in 2015, I didn't know what a registered dietitian was, and I certainly didn't know the difference between a dietitian and a nutritionist. Now, depending on where you're joining us from around the world, there are different terminologies in different countries. But in the US, a registered dietitian is a highly trained individual. Any one of us could call ourselves a nutritionist. A lot of us could go online, take a course, and we could come out the other side calling us ourselves a nutritionist. I didn't know that just until a few years ago, but in the US, that is the case. And so we have an article for you at FODMAP Every Day that explains the difference between nutritionists and registered dietitians that you might want to take a look at. And so what we're suggesting and what Monash suggests is that you connect with a registered dietitian. So this is because, as I mentioned, the GIs, they're not in the trenches with all of you. They're not meeting individually with people and getting your personal story. You are diagnosed with IBS. Maybe you're also diabetic. Maybe you are an endurance athlete, and maybe you are just weaning your third child. We all have unique situations, and this is what the registered dietitians are excellent at. They will help tailor the right approach to the low FODMAP diet for you. So in the beginning, when I first discovered the diet, we used to tell people that they needed to follow the diet strictly. And I don't use that word anymore. We use the term structured because, like I said, each of us has a different medical presentation and need. To take an extreme, let's say you have an eating disorder, or let's say you have anxiety around food scarcity. If that's true, then a very strict elimination approach to the diet would actually be contraindicated. And a registered dietitian is the one who's going to help you understand how to do it. This goes back also to the not self-diagnosing. We don't want you to self-diagnose that you have IBS, and we also don't want you to completely self-direct how you are going to approach this diet. Because what we see time again and again, every day, we hear from people who they're going in a circle. They're going in a circle. You know, they're reading things here and they're reading things there, and they're contradictory, and they're putting things together that don't mesh. And this thing is evidence-based and this thing isn't. And they try eating this and they don't eat that, and they're still getting breakthrough symptoms, and they don't understand why. And it's because there's no structure to their approach. So I understand that not everyone can work with a registered dietitian. The one thing I do want to point out to you, though, is that I know that can seem daunting. First of all, it can seem daunting about finding an RD. That has gotten so much easier. The majority of the RDs that we speak to these days are working remotely with people. So you don't even have to stick to your own state. You could work with a FODMAP savvy RD who's on the other side of the world, and you could still get the information that you need. So don't worry about geography anymore. And we do recognize that for a lot of us in the US, for most of us in the US, that this is going to be an out-of-pocket expense. So one of the things that I always like to get across is understand that, first of all, statistically, And anecdotally, we know that if you work with a registered dietitian, you have a better chance of success. And here's the great news. This doesn't have to be a super expensive long-term thing. You could literally have 2, 3, or 4 meetings with a registered dietitian, and that's going to make the difference for you between spinning your wheels and still having painful IBS symptoms and getting a handle on what your IBS needs in terms of an approach to the low FODMAP diet. So think about that. 2, 3, or 4 meetings with a registered dietitian could make the difference. So don't necessarily think this is some really gigantic thing that you have to do. So okay, so let's say you have a registered dietitian, or perhaps you don't. You need to follow the diet and you need to gather your resources together. And we want to make sure that they are the right ones, because even if you're working with an RD, you're not with the RD 24 hours a day. So if you're in a restaurant and you're trying to figure out what to order, or if you're getting ready, we just had someone contact us the other day. She's getting married in a couple of weeks and she wanted to know, how can I be sure not to trigger myself between now and then? I mean, all kinds of things come up, right? Where you want to be as symptom-free as possible, have as smooth a sailing day as possible, right? With no breakout diarrhea, constipation, bloating, I mean, you name it. And your RD is not always going to be there. So what are the resources that are going to be the best for you? Now, I did notice a bunch of you did mention the Monash app, and certainly that is key. I believe actually that you cannot follow the diet without the Monash University smartphone app. It is that important, and I'll explain why. Monash University researchers developed the diet. And at that time, Sue Shepard, who was part of the research team, she was part of the team that developed the diet. She eventually split off and developed a business called FODMAP Friendly. Still to this day, FODMAP Friendly and Monash University are what we consider the 2 primary resources for FODMAP information. I recommend that people get both of the apps because they work in a complementary fashion. Both of these entities are the ones who are lab testing raw ingredients, fruits, vegetables, grains, all kinds of raw ingredients. Plus, each of them also are lab testing and certifying products. We have Catan here. He has a product. Do you have one of your little products with you, Catan? He has an awesome line of chicken broth and garlic and onion replacement seasonings. They are certified. That means you can be guaranteed that these are low FODMAP if used in the amounts recommended. So get those apps. Not only will you have answers at your fingertips, okay? I mean, literally. So can I eat? You're out, you're traveling. Let's say you're traveling and you go to a restaurant in the morning and it's one of those free buffets. Oh, here, look, Jamie has some too. Show the product. I want to show the icon. Can you guys show the icon? I meant to have products here, but she could do it.
So here, I'm going to spotlight myself. There we go. So here's the Monash little.
There you go.
That logo.
So the Monash logo.
Gourmand product.
Ta-da! Yeah. So, Monash and FODMAP Friendly, their symbol looks like a little connecting green F. If you see these icons on products, you know that they have been lab tested and they are low FODMAP. So this goes a long way to assuring you that you have some reputable FODMAP information at your fingertips. Monash and FODMAP Friendly. Also, they in their app, they not only have the raw ingredients listed, they have the products that they've lab tested listed as well. Sometimes there's a lag with them getting the stuff on the app, but the apps are really first line of resource for you. And they do update them consistently. Now, one thing I want to point out is we get a lot of questions from people. I just had a question this morning. Someone wrote to me and they said, I see kabocha pumpkin has no FODMAPs, and I was wondering if Hokkaido squash or Hokkaido pumpkin, I can't find any information on it. Can you tell me if this has no FODMAPs as well? So here's another key piece of information to know. FODMAP Friendly and Monash University are the two main entities that are lab testing ingredients. If the ingredients that you're interested in, like a Hokkaido pumpkin, are not listed on the app, it means no one knows the FODMAP content of that item because it hasn't been lab tested with publicly published information. So what I told that person was I told her all of that. And then I said, you know, and extrapolations can be tricky. We know that butternut squash is completely different than kabocha, for instance. So extrapolating and trying to know what Hokkaido pumpkin is, it's a crapshoot. So if you're wondering about something that's not on the apps, it's because it hasn't been lab tested. And then you have to treat it as an untested food. And what we normally tell people is if you are stable, meaning if you are free from breakout symptoms with your IBS, and if you're in your second phase, if you're in your challenge phase, then try an untested food, because that's the only way that you're going to tell whether it works for you or not. Now, the third thing after, you know, we're talking about gathering your resources, and we talked about the apps. And now here's the second big thing. I didn't laugh. Obviously, it was just in our Facebook group. So the person didn't know how shocked I was at this response. But when we asked people, what was the most helpful thing for you when you started the low FODMAP diet? And most people were really specific. They mentioned specific RDs, they mentioned specific books, they mentioned specific apps. And then one person said, the internet. Okay, so here's the problem. Unfortunately, just because something says it is low FODMAP does not mean that it is. And that goes for things you find on the internet, Pinterest pins, websites, recipes. Recently in my Low FODMAP for Foodies Facebook group, we've actually found several books for sale on Amazon. You know how you can use the little feature where you look inside? In less than 15 minutes, we found 3 books that had low FODMAP in the title, low FODMAP this, low FODMAP that. And the very first recipes we looked up were like, you know, chop 2 cloves of garlic. And I mean, it was crazy. So I know that this is horrible information. It is horrible information. But the fact is that just because something says it's low FODMAP doesn't mean that it's true. So therefore, when you're looking up a recipe, when you're looking for a book to buy, how do you know if it's reputable or not? If you're brand new to the diet, you don't necessarily know that those garlic cloves in that stew are a problem. So what do you do? What we suggest is, again, going back to Monash and FODMAP Friendly, understand, first of all, look who is providing the information, right? Who is posting it? Is it a registered dietitian? That could be a really good thing. Is it a blogger who just said, I follow the low FODMAP diet and I've decided to write about it and share some of my discoveries? They don't have any medical credentials. They may be providing you information that's taking you down the wrong path. So you have to be critical. The fact is, with this diet, it's not easy. It isn't. And you have to be an advocate for your own health. There are very few hacks to this diet. There are no shortcuts. You have to do education for yourself to make sure that you are following it accurately for you. Because again, as I said, you might be diabetic, you might have high blood pressure, you might have GERD. You're going to be following it differently. So when you're looking at resources, look and see who's presenting them and check out their background. So that's what I call understanding what you're looking at. Now, seek out community, but be prudent. This speaks to the Facebook groups. There are some Facebook groups that I find really, really helpful. If you're in the USA products group, I think is really, really helpful. There are some general support groups that are might be interesting for you to join. We have the one that I mentioned before, which is Low FODMAP for foodies. If you're really into cooking and you think you're going to have to give that up, I'm telling you, you don't, and you can come join us in that group. But here's the caveat. Going into Facebook groups or Reddit, Reddit is very active. But again, the caveats are that I think that going into groups like this is really good for our mental state. It's really good to learn that we're not alone. And it's really good to know that there are other people following the diet who are having the same frustrations that we do. It's really interesting to hear about their successes, but you have to take a step back. Each of us is so individual, so it's not a good place to crowdsource information. So for that person who asked me about the Hokkaido pumpkin, if she had come to one of the sites and said, has anyone tried Hokkaido pumpkin? How did you do with it? It's really not a great question, because I might not digest it at all. Jamie might do well with half a cup of a serving. Robin might do well with 1 cup, but not if she does it 2 days in a row. And your result with Hokkaido pumpkin might be none of the above. So this is sort of the danger of crowdsourcing information online. So, I think that you can look at these groups as really good in some regards, but just be mindful that you always have to understand that your personal relationship to FODMAPs is going to be different than anybody else's. And just going back to the apps for a moment. So maybe it would help if I explained what the apps are actually showing us. Hopefully most of you do have the Monash app already. And so you're used to looking at the entries, but let me just pick up something that would be typical. Okay, broccoli. A lot of us eat broccoli. So, you're probably used to seeing the green lights, and here it says 3/4 of a cup or 75 grams is what Monash is saying is a low FODMAP serving. So what I want to explain to you is what that serving is. That serving is the amount that is, listen to my words, unlikely to trigger symptoms in most people. You might not be most people, and unlikely is no guarantee. So you could eat 3/4 of a cup of broccoli and you might trigger some IBS symptoms for you. So what does that mean? It means that you're more sensitive to the fructans in broccoli than the average person. It doesn't mean that the Monash app entry was wrong. It doesn't mean that you're necessarily sicker than anyone else. It just means this is your relationship to FODMAPs. So understand that these servings are, I always say, a stake in the ground. They're a place for you to begin your exploration of your relationship to FODMAPs. And this is what a registered dietitian would guide you along, holding your hands the whole way. They would be there to explain to you why that 3/4 of a cup of broccoli triggered you, or why you ate double the amount and you didn't get triggered, right? So,
Day,
yes.
I'm wondering if we could stop for a moment to see if there's questions along the way.
Okay.
If you just want to, ask and see if people have questions around anything that you've actually presented in this last little while.
Absolutely.
So folks, if you have any questions at all at any point, feel free to
type
use
them.
feel free to put it in the chat as we're going along. And that way we can make sure that Day takes a breath and we can answer some of your questions before she goes on to the next thing. And also, if she hasn't covered something that you would like her to cover that you want to make sure we do while we're here today, that would be great.
And the next topic I was going to talk about is preparing yourself mentally to do the diet. So if that's a segue for anyone, if anybody wants to talk about that, talk about the stress, the anxiety, the what it feels like when you're told you have to undertake this diet, that means you're going to be minimizing or eliminating some foods from your diet. That's a big topic. Any groups not on Facebook, I do not trust it, says Phyllis. So this is so interesting. So Phyllis, I'm assuming you mean just Facebook in general. You don't really want to deal with Facebook. As I mentioned, there are some very, very active groups on Reddit. I don't know if you're part of the Reddit community. It has all the same sort of issues that Facebook groups do, though, in the sense that there are a lot of people answering questions that don't necessarily have any credentials. So you have to take it with a grain of salt. But Reddit would be another place to go. Phyllis, where are you online? Where are you online? Maybe we can help you.
You mean what social media?
Yeah.
Will she
Are
follow?
there anywhere else? I mean, really, Facebook, I understand, a lot of people are not on Facebook, but there are, I don't even know how many.
Hi, I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area. I'm not on any social media because I don't.
Okay. We could, if you want to connect with us after the fact, we could connect you with some RDs that are physically in your area. And I'm wondering if maybe someone wants to, I'm sure there are other people like you who maybe would rather have a private group that you could organize on your own, or even maybe physical distance isn't, proximity isn't even necessary.
The private chat groups. Yeah, there might be some.
Exactly. That's what I would do.
I'll take a note on that and see if we can do a little research to see if there are private chat groups available out there.
Definitely. So I'll just start talking a little bit about the mental aspect. So I think that you have to prepare yourself mentally for this. And the reason I say that is because anytime you're told you should eliminate something, it can really trigger anxiety and stress for people. How are you going to physically do this? Let's say you have a family of 4 to feed and you're the only one that's going on the diet. I mean, literally, logistically, physically, how are you going to do this? Then mentally, you don't want to give up your weekly chocolate bar, or you don't want to give up, your coffee drink that you have every day. I mean, whatever it is, and that can feel, that can trigger stress. So we have a lot of resources for all of you that are specifically geared around stress and anxiety. And we just want you to know that this is not unusual to have stress and anxiety around the idea of deprivation. And so definitely take a look at some of the articles that we have for you. And like I said, know that you're not alone in that. And the other thing about deprivation, when Robin and I started FODMAP Every Day, and we were trying to figure out, what is our motto? And it actually took us a while to figure it out. And then when we came upon the word thrive, we realized that was it. We are going to build a company, and we have built a company dedicated to teaching people how to thrive on the low FODMAP diet. So, everything that we do, we try to imbue with that sense of positivity, of potential. It's like the anti-deprivation approach to the diet, which actually is a great segue to talk about Epicured, for instance. So we assume all of you know what amazing foods and meals that Epicured provides. And, that's it. Set yourself up for success right? So that you're not mentally stressed and you don't feel physically deprived. Maybe you only have time to cook a low FODMAP meal from scratch 2 or 3 days a week, then so be it. There are other resources out there for you like Epicured, where you can work hand in hand with cooking from scratch, maybe finding some local takeout that works for you, and then ordering meals. Make this as easy as possible for you so that it works, because the goal is to get you symptom-free, right? We want to eliminate your triggers, but we also want to make sure that you come out of this with a positive relationship to food. That circles back to the whole thing about the RD. The RDs are going to make sure that you have a positive relationship with food. It's really, really important. Now, Robin's putting up not only stress eating, part of, certainly for me and certainly for a lot of other people, part of the way that we keep ourselves mentally healthy is with our physical exercise, whether that's running or, Pilates or yoga. A lot of different physical activities can not only help your mental state, but your physical state as well. And the whole thing with stress and IBS, this is a gut-brain axis thing that's going on. This has been proven. So, if you've ever had a doctor tell you, oh, it's in your head, well, it's not all in your head, but some of it's in your head. And, the thing about stress and IBS is that, it's like this, right? If you're stressed about something, you can trigger your IBS. And if you have IBS, you can get stressed out. So it's a chicken and egg thing. You have to work on it from both angles. So here's someone says, do we know a credible app for SIBO? We do not, or she says biphasic and all of this. We focus on the low FODMAP diet, and its primary raison d'etre is to help people with IBS. So that is our focus. The diet obviously is used for a lot of people with SIBO, but there will be modifications. And that's exactly the type of thing that a registered dietitian can help you with. Someone says here, it's important to have a positive relationship with all areas of your life. Absolutely. And we want to keep your relationship with your body and your food positive as well, and balance. Yes, Robin, all about balance. She actually has really good actual balance. So yes. So once you prepare yourself mentally, stocking your pantry, physically stocking your pantry so you have what you need, then you're going to have this physical resource there in your cupboard and in your refrigerator. So we have shopping lists for you at FODMAP Every Day, which are free. And we have some shopping lists cost a few dollars, but we have thousands, literally thousands of curated items that each and every one has been reviewed by a Monash trained registered dietitian. We have shopping lists for Kohl's in Australia. We have Walmart, we have Whole Foods, we have Trader Joe's. Now, the thing about our Walmart list, even if you don't like shopping at Walmart, the Walmart list is gigantic. And because it's gigantic, it contains a lot of just basic foods that are probably found at your local supermarket, regardless of what your local supermarket is. So the Walmart shopping list can be really helpful if you're looking for a generic large shopping list. And that is the first thing that I did. I went home and I got rid of things that I knew that I was not going to be eating over the course of the 1 month, approximately 4-week elimination phase. And I just stocked it with all the foods that I knew I could eat. And I just based it at the time. The only resource I had was the Monash app, but it guided me very well. And stocking your pantry, this is another thing, resources. Sometimes resources are things like an app, but sometimes resources are literally like, do I have what I need at hand? And that's really important, because with the diet, there's going to be times where all of a sudden you're hungry. you've been working, you've been playing with your kids, you've been gardening, whatever you've been doing. And all of a sudden you realize that your blood sugar is tanking and you're really hungry. And if you do not have low FODMAP food at hand that you can grab and that you can eat quickly, you might end up reaching for something that you're going to regret about later. So you want to physically set yourself up for success, have those actual resources for you, the actual foods and beverages in your refrigerator and in your pantry. Now, I touched on the elimination phase and I said, about 4 weeks. Now, I don't know how many of you are at the very beginning of your diet or what phase you're at, but another thing that I always like to point out is that the diet is a 3-phase diet. And even some MDs use the terminology wrong. They'll say, I want you to go on this low FODMAP diet, but you shouldn't stay on it long-term because that's not healthy for your microbiome. When what they're really referencing is the elimination phase of the diet, which indeed should be short and sweet. So educate yourself and understand that this is a 3-phase diet. The first phase averages about 4 weeks, so we typically call it 1 month. And that is the strictest part. That's why it's called elimination. We're really eliminating and minimizing most of the FODMAPs in our diet. And this is to calm our system down, give you some relief, and pave the way for the second phase. So when you are first told you need to go on this diet and you hear the word elimination and you are told you're not going to be able to have this, that, and the other thing, that's when all that, stress can really get triggered. Understand that this is for a short period of time and that the goal of the diet is actually to help you eat as many foods as possible, as broad of a range of food as possible in the end, without triggering your IBS. So the whole elimination part, the whole really hard part is just going to be for about 4 weeks in the beginning. And truth be told, I know this is not everyone's experience, but I also know I'm not alone. For me, the elimination month was not difficult because for the first time in 25 years, I was pain-free. That's incredible motivation, right? I mean, if you're still suffering with a lot of breakthrough IBS pain or diarrhea, constipation, bloating, whatever however it is that you present, if you're still dealing with that on a daily or multi times a week basis, and all of a sudden, just by altering your diet, you get to radically change that, that can give you a lot of motivation. So then, once you've calmed your system down and you're basically symptom-free, you're going to be challenging yourself in a structured way and reintroducing foods one by one. This is, if there's ever a point in time during the diet that you could use a registered dietitian, this is the time, because it needs to be done in a structured way. You need to know how much did you eat, what was your response, because if you don't keep track of that, you're not going to get the information you need. And when you get to the end of your challenge phase, you're not going to have really actionable information that pertains to you. And some of it is subtle, and, we have to talk about things people don't like to talk about, like farting. I mean, we have people who write us and they're like, I'm in my challenge phase and I had a couple of tablespoons of onion in an egg salad and I was farting. And I don't know, does that mean I failed my challenge? And this is a perfect example of a question that your RD can help you understand. Farting is actually fairly normal. I mean, a certain amount of farting, we all fart every day, even those of us without IBS. In fact, Robin, if we can link that, we have 2 articles on the site on farting, which are really a hilarious and enjoyable read, as well as very informative. So since you all fart, you should all go read the farting articles for sure. So stock your pantry. We talked about that. We talked about the free list. I'm just going to bounce back into the chat for a moment. There we go. We all fart. And then I'm going to wrap up with a section before we open it up for Q&A. And really, this last thing is reiterating about the fact that you are unique. So your relationship to FODMAPs is not going to be like anyone else's. So if you use Monash and FODMAP friendly, if you use resources like Epicured or FODMAP Every Day or other resources that are basing their evidence-based information on information coming from Monash or FODMAP friendly, then you're going to be in a good position of approaching this diet correctly, but still understand that you are unique. So you're going to go through your elimination phase, and then you're going to go through your challenge phase. And when you come out of that challenge phase, you might know things like, well, the app says I should be able to eat a cup of rice, but I found out I can't. I found out that for me, a half a cup of rice is my limit. Well, then that's your limit. Listen to your body, not the app. Ultimately, your body is going to tell you what is right for you. And to take it a step further, maybe you find out that half a cup of rice is good for you, but it is not okay 2 days in a row. It can get that sort of fine-tuned. Now, let me just look at a question. What are impressions of a dietitian in the Netherlands? I can't, off the top of my head, I can't respond. I have to do a little background. If you want to, Phyllis, write me directly through our website and we can follow up with a chat about that particular website you're posting. So the other thing I wanted to mention is that your unique relationship to FODMAPs is also not static. And I think this is something that doctors don't explain, particularly at the beginning. So let's say you found out you can eat a half a cup of rice and you can't eat a half a cup of rice 2 days in a row. That doesn't mean that it's necessarily going to be that way forever. And that's also why we call at FODMAP Every Day, we call the second phase the challenge phase and not the reintroduction phase. Because in our mind, the reintroduction phase is what can happen 6 months later, 9 months later, 12 months later, when you reintroduce a larger amount of rice to your diet to check in with your gut, see how you're doing. And more often than not, we find from people that as they go along, as their gut gets more streamlined, their digestion gets better and better, that down the line, they end up being able to eat foods that they couldn't initially, or they could eat foods in greater amounts that they couldn't initially. So, revisiting your challenges and reintroducing them at a later time is always prudent. And again, a broken record, this is the kind of thing that a registered dietitian could help you with. So we're almost at about 10 to the hour, and I would really just love to open it up to Q&A. We've been fielding a few of them. I think that the takeaways for you guys is that this diet is clinically proven. This differentiates it from fad diets like Whole30 or the sort of popular version of the keto diet or paleo. A clinically proven diet means that clinical studies have shown that it works, and it works for up to 75% of people with IBS. So it's clinically proven, so that's a really good thing. If you're not getting the results that you expected from following the diet, it could be so many things. It could be that you were using a high and low FODMAP list that was incorrect. It could be that you were taking probiotics and a bunch of supplements that are not recommended during the elimination phase at the same time. And so you didn't get an accurate reading of your relationship to FODMAPs. But don't worry, this is exactly the kind of thing a registered dietitian can help you tease out. So it's a clinically proven diet. It can help up to 75% of you, statistically and anecdotally. If you work with a registered dietitian, as I mentioned earlier, you have a better chance of success. We want to make sure that all of you download the Monash and FODMAP friendly smartphone apps. They're really going to be your best resources at your fingertips. You're going to be able to look up not only raw ingredients and get an accurate sense of what a serving size is and where you might start your exploration to FODMAPs, but they will also list products that have gone through product certification, like Catan's products that we showed you earlier. So you'll have information on spices and tomato sauces and stock. His chicken stock, by the way, delicious. All kinds of foods that can help you stock your pantry, so you have your physical resources at hand that are truly low FODMAP. And really, the thing that I like to say in closing is just understand that you're not alone. Approximately 15% of the population globally has IBS. There are millions of us who are following the low FODMAP diet, and every day, I learn new things every day. So, take baby steps, understand that it does take some self-education. You do have to invest some time, like you are here today, in learning more about the diet and your relationship to the diet, but it can be done. There is light at the end of the tunnel. Robin and I get emails almost weekly from particularly women. I mean, you probably all know statistically about 2/3 of the people with IBS are women. We get emails almost every week from women in their 70s, 80s, and 90s who are telling us that for the first time in their lives, they are getting relief. And, it's never too late to get relief, but we certainly don't want everyone to wait that long either. So any more questions, folks? I'm not seeing any more right now. Catan, tell us, I want to hear from Catan. Tell me what's going on. Catan he's been doing polls. He's been asking people whether his next stock product should be vegetable or beef. And I got to tell you, I was split. I'm like, I want vegetable. I want beef. I want vegetable.
It's very split.
It's very split.
It's very split.
Can you give us like, an exclusive? Do we know what's coming next? Oh boy. Oh, this is exciting.
I'm actually not sure which is going to be first. I think I want to do vegetable first if we can't do them both. This is it. Super dark.
Okay, excellent. He's like whipping up in his kitchen, in his mad laboratory.
This one's taken about 6 months, actually probably longer to develop, but it's got oyster mushrooms in it, which are really hard to source in this country. We're not going to buy.
And umami, all the umami
Yes,
from all the flavor.
It's the only really low FODMAP mushrooms. We've got oyster mushrooms in there and some tomato paste, carrots, scallion tops, all the good stuff. So I'm really excited for that one. Yeah, I
love it. So if you guys haven't looked into his products yet, please do. So here says, Millie says, for the mental part, shifting to thinking with open curiosity. Oh my God, I love that. And that the body is informing me has been helpful over just fearing getting sick. Millie, I love that. Open curiosity, and also open curiosity knowing, right, that it can get better. We shouldn't be assuming things are going to get worse. I mean, this diet, if we are approaching it correctly, if we are using the resources that we know are good resources, chances are 75% of us are going to get better. I mean, that's like a phenomenal thing. And she loves mushrooms. So I bet you she'll be first in line, Catan. And is that a surprise to anybody here? Mushrooms, if you have any mushroom lovers, did you know that oyster mushrooms, 75 grams of oyster mushrooms, that's a lot of mushrooms, are considered a low FODMAP serving size. I mean, you could have like a whole bunch to put in a stir fry or a stew, or Catan's using them to make a stock. So
yeah, they're awesome.
Excellent, excellent. We've got more links. Robin's keeping us up to date. Robin, do you want to just really briefly explain about this methodology, this stress reducing methodology? Because I think it's really interesting.
Yeah, I'm wondering if Millie would like to join me in
Oh.
having this conversation. So, I don't know, is Millie, are you here still?
We only have a couple of minutes, so I want you to get the info in.
Yeah,
Okay, oops.
there you are.
Sure, sorry, I'm in the car. I'm trying.
That's okay. That's great. Even better.
I would
Even
love
better.
to. Yeah. Thank you. Well, the Feel Good methodology is a really powerful and simple set of tools to help manage life's stresses and anything a little bit better, so we can become more skillful in doing that. And it's we have a challenge going on right now that goes through Wednesday, but we have a Facebook group and also a great community. But just teaching these simple tools of starting to read our body's signals and identify what we call it the feel good channel, or what homeostatic level we are at any given time. And then 3 simple steps to help shift that if we want to. And that's stop. So if we think of it as like a, what do you call it? A signal light, you know, red, yellow, green. That red zone would be where we would stop, yellow, slow down and breathe, and then green, choosing a feel good habit. So doing things like making sure that you have your pantry equipped with the tools to make it easy for yourself to choose a feel good habit, nourishing your body rather than stress eating or just getting something because you're hangry and don't know what you're doing and you just need food. Those are types of things that we teach and that we learn. I'm an apprentice to become a certified facilitator. That's why I'm somewhat familiar with the work, and I love it. It's been life-changing for me.
Oh, wonderful.
thank
Thank
you
you
so
so
much.
much, Millie. Really appreciate
Yeah.
your driving and talking at the same time.
You know, it's and the fact is, I don't think I've ever met somebody with IBS who doesn't have some level of stress. So, you know, this really can be applicable to probably all of us. Robin provided some links. Definitely look into that, and we will continue to find stress relieving related activities and ideas for you, because it's going to be this is a constant for those of us living with IBS.
Thank you, Millie, so much. Really appreciate it.
You are most welcome. And for me, I'm here because my beloved, he has suffered with IBS for a long time. And in order to be supportive, just educating and really, because we are along on this journey together. So.
Wonderful. How wonderful is that? It's important to be able to partner and support our friends when they're dealing with this as well. Thank you. Dede, should we close that?
Yeah, we're going to wrap up. I was just going to say for people who maybe do not have a supportive Millie in their life, we actually have articles about how to talk to your friends and family about the diet. And that's a really interesting article as well, because that can be especially the holidays are coming up. You want to be able to participate in Thanksgiving or, Hanukkah celebrations, whatever it is. And you should be communicating your needs to your friends and family. And we've got some tips for you as well for that. I think we're probably right at the hour. Are we, Jamie?
We are. Thank you, everyone, so much for your time. Again, this is the second Tuesday of every month at 2 p.m. Eastern. I see a lot of you who have registered through the remainder of the year. It's the same link for all of them. So register for all of them, register for one of them. Whenever you can join us, we will be here to welcome you with open arms, sharing helpful tools and resources. We'll have some fantastic guest speakers coming up for the rest of the year. And of course, if you have ideas or requests, please send them our way. We love to hear from you always, anytime. Dede and Robin will be following up with a recording of this session and with all the links that Robin has been dropping into the chat. So keep an eye out for that. And of course, there will be great deals on Epicured and Gourmand from K10. So we'll be in touch with that as well.
Excellent.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye-bye.